The other day I couldn't get the Thunderbird started at all. Turned out the battery was a little bit on the flat side, but it just needed a bit of love. So I'm going to do some servicing on this, so some new plugs, oil change, filter changes, all that kind of thing. But right now I thought, before this snow is forecast, I'll take her out for a little trip. I'm already feeling the cold on my fingers. It's about 4 degrees at the moment, but I'm not going very far. I'm going to see if there's this little coffee shop up on the downs here in Bristol. Hoping it's open now, because it'd be nice just to park there and have a little coffee. Just a bit of me time, you know, we all need it. There's very few bikes that I've ridden that beat the Thunderbird. Obviously there's things that other bikes do better. So the Thunderbird is a bit top heavy. So at slow speeds, it is a little bit like, am I going to be okay going around this bend? You know, you do have that feeling at slow speed sometimes. The comfort factor, it is one of the most comfortable bikes I've ever ridden. There's loads of power. It's a very difficult bike to beat. A very difficult bike to beat. And on top of all of the performance things that you get with a Thunderbird, I know it's not a sports bike. I know some of you guys ride bikes that will go faster in first gear than this will do in fifth. But in terms of character, reliability, all the stuff that you want from a bike, the Thunderbird kind of has it all. And I've been on so many bikes, and I've been tempted by so many bikes over the years. And the Thunderbird just seems to tick so many of the boxes of the things that I want in a motorcycle that is a difficult one to replace. Now, this bike, this particular bike, I don't think I would ever replace it. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it, if you put it like that, because we've kind of got history and it's become a bit of a trophy for me. This guy looks like things are not quite right with his moped. I'm not sure. Yeah, well done, you indicated. But we got some history, me and this bike. We rode all the way down to Turkey together and slept in fields together all across Europe. And that's quite something special, isn't it? So I don't know about you. You should tell me in your comments below bikes that have kind of become part of you and that you don't think you're ever going to be able to get rid of. Truth be told, this Thunderbird probably isn't worth a whole lot of money anymore anyway. It's got 41,374 miles on the clock. That's a lot of miles for a motorcycle, unless it's like a Goldwing. And I'm not going to talk about Goldwings now, but in a later episode I think I probably will. But unless you're riding a Goldwing, 41,000 miles on a motorcycle is quite a lot. But as you can see and hear from this bike, this engine has not got any strange noises, any problems, nothing. It just seems to be one of those bikes that it will start every time you go out. Actually, that's wrong, isn't it? Because last time I went out it didn't start, but that was my fault for not charging the battery fully. So if you've got a charged battery, if you've got a fairly okay service bike, then it's just going to roll forever. And I just flipping love this bike. Absolutely love it. I've ordered some handlebars, the ones that I had when I bought the bike and that got bent in that little crash that I had in Belgium. I found those exact ones, and I will tell you what they are later on. I've forgotten the name of them. But they're called, the style of the handlebars is called the Western, I think, and I can't remember the name of the company that make them. But yeah, they're coming in a few days time, and then it'll get me back to that riding stance that I really like. This is a bit too aggressive for me. It's a bit too lean forward, not really my thing. Hey, let's take a trip down here, down on the old circular road. So this is kind of leading towards the viewpoint that looks over the Avon Gorge down towards the Clifton Suspension Bridge. And I do really need to do kind of a tour of Bristol episode, or a couple of episodes where you get to see my amazing city. It's a great city. There's a lot going on, a lot on offer. You should come and visit. I'd even make you my famous lasagna, probably. So yeah, anyway, getting those handlebars, putting those back on, the ones that I had originally, and that will get me back to that riding position that I really, really like. So that's going to be fun. But yeah, the Thunderbird, you can't really go wrong with a bike like this. And when I look at the prices of Thunderbirds on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, you get a lot for your money. I mean, if you can go for the slightly cheaper version of the Thunderbird, which was called, I think it's called the Legend, and I don't really know why that one was cheaper, because it looks identical. But there apparently were a few things with the Legend that were slightly different than the Thunderbird. I can't remember what they were. I have been very, very close to pulling the trigger on buying a Triumph Trident, which is a slightly more kind of 80s looking bike, I suppose. It's not gone for the retro thing. It went for a little bit more of the sports, 80s sports look, if you know what I mean. And there's something about it. It's like the early days of kind of muscle bikes kind of thing. And they go even cheaper. And you could argue that it's a better bike than the Thunderbird. It's got 100 brake horsepower. It's a 900cc like this. It's basically the same engine, but it's 100 brake horsepower. It's got the double discs at the front. It's probably a better bike in many ways, but people do say that it's more top heavy than the Thunderbird. Now that isn't a good thing, because the Thunderbird is already pretty top heavy. And like I said earlier, if you're going really slow, slower than this, maneuvering is a little bit like, oh my gosh, am I going to drop this? The Trident, kind of, even though I've been tempted by it because it's an absolute belter of a motorcycle, and I don't know about you, I look at motorbikes all the time and I think, oh, if I had a big enough stable for my motorbikes, then that would be one of them, maybe. But it's a bit too top heavy, and I'm a short guy, and so when something starts to roll, when something starts to lean too much, and I'm already on my tiptoes or something, it's not a good mixture. It's not a good scenario. It can go over pretty quick. And I have to say that there's not really a single modern motorcycle that tickles my fancy. You know, there's some good modern motorcycles out there. I have to say, there's some awesome modern motorbikes out there, but nothing that really makes me think I would drop 5 or 6 grand on that to buy it. I would rather buy an older bike that needs kind of a bit of constant love, care and attention for a lot less money. I mean, with the Thundy like this, you won't find a bike that's engineered like this anymore. It costs too much money to make bikes this good. There's nothing in it. So it's just not going to be done, is it? Nah, that was only a couple of miles, but my gosh, that's cold. Right, I'm going to go and find a coffee. Look at this. This is the Downs. This is where you come and exercise and run around and do your thing. And it's beautiful. And what a beautiful day. Even if it is freezing. I'm not sure how many more of these days we've got before either the snow comes or the winter really sets in properly, but I don't think there's that many more riding days left, so I'm making the most of them. It's about 4 degrees right now, 4 or 5 degrees, but when you're wrapped up warm with your leathers on, it's not so bad. I'm at this lovely little coffee shop on the Downs in Bristol, and it's got to be one of the busiest coffee shops ever, and I don't think I could do coffee shop work. I don't think I can anyway, because it just looks absolutely bonkers. And I have to say, this year I've been looking forward to getting past 2024, put it like that,
because that was a bit of a harsh year for me in many ways. Didn't enjoy it that much, totally took it out of me. And I started the year with so many good intentions of being like, I'm really going to kind of find my rhythm this year. And then what I went and did was just throw myself into projects that absolutely beasted me and didn't do me any good at all. So it was good in terms of what we accomplished in the year, but not really good for me. It was a little bit too much, really. So glad to get past 24 and hit 25 with a bit of a sense of a bit more optimism, I think, because a number of things have fallen into place that I didn't think would fall into place quite so quickly, and they have, and that's been really awesome. So I do feel like this could be slightly different. But every year I tend to challenge myself with something. It's probably I don't know, maybe just a bad habit, I don't know. But this year I've challenged myself with a physical activity. So I am going to run a marathon at the towards the end of the year. It's probably going to be the Lisbon Marathon in Portugal. But before that, in April, I'm going to be doing a half marathon. Now, my training is kind of started already. Doing lots of strength and conditioning training to get my knees ready because your knees take a bit of a pounding. And tomorrow the road running starts. So that is my challenge for 2025, is to kind of, it was more of a physical challenge rather than anything else. And like I said, I've always done it. I don't know why. I've always kind of given myself a bit of a challenge at the start of the year, something to aim for, to aim towards, to reach for, something to push myself a bit. And I think it's important to do that for me anyway, and maybe it is for a lot of guys. Kind of give yourself something that is gonna require something of you, so that you don't just kind of settle into a load of I don't know, not a load of nothing, because we never do just a load of nothing. We're busy, aren't we? We've got stuff going on, but more like more like wanting to push myself and stay kind of on top of my game, I suppose. And running a marathon doesn't really help me in my business ventures. It doesn't kind of benefit me that way, but it pushes me in terms of my mental capacity. It pushes me in terms of my physical capacity. It makes me plan. It makes me strategize a bit. It makes me think ahead of just where I'm at today, or ahead of what's going to be happening tomorrow. It gives me a bit of something to move towards. And I don't know about you guys, this is part of my kind of mental health journey as well, is staying on top of that kind of thing, giving myself challenges, putting myself out there, making sure I'm doing stuff that's not always comfortable for me, so that I have I guess there's a bit of control. When you have a plan and you make a plan and you have a goal, you have a little bit of kind of control over your, a bit of control over your time, a kind of a something to fill your time with that's constructive and good and all that stuff and positive. So I kind of tend to do that at the start of the year, give myself a bit of a challenge to do. I did it with the ride down to Turkey on the Triumph, a couple of years back, that I was like, I'm going to do this. It's a bit of a challenge. I had people telling me it wasn't such a good idea to do on your own, and particularly not to wild camp, but I was like, no. And actually that ended up being one of the most epic things I've ever done in my life, and there's no way I'm not going to do something like that again. It's good coffee. I'm not on the flapjack. You know why? Because I've eaten more this Christmas and New Year than I've probably ever done before, so I don't need that many calories right now. The road running starts tomorrow, and I'm following a strict program because I would typically go and do more than I should do, and that's never a good thing. So it's kind of saying you can do this much and no more. My youngest son Elias, he bought me a Garmin watch for Christmas, which I wasn't expecting him to do, but he's really, really into his fitness and bodybuilding and all stuff like that. And he knew that I wanted to do this, and decided that he was going to get me this watch. And I didn't know he was going to do it. And actually, when I opened it on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, we open our presents Christmas Eve because Lillian's Norwegian and all that stuff, I was really moved because, my son went and bought me something. That was awesome. It just felt really special. So that kind of is going to be tracking everything in terms of stopping myself from pushing myself too hard. That is probably a weakness of mine, just pushing myself too much, too hard, trying to achieve too much in too short of a space of time, and not pacing myself, so that I ended up burning out. And I've burnt out quite a few times in my adult life, I have to say. That's not the smartest thing to do. Here's another thing, and this might come as a bit of a shock, but I think I might sell the Phaser. It's not because I don't like it. It's not because it's not a great bike, but I realized that actually those types of bike don't do anything for me. And this particular Phaser is really tidy, and it's probably wrong to start chopping it up anyway because it's an awesome bike, but it's just not ticking the boxes for me. And if I'm going to do some kind of resto mod, then I want it to be done on a bike that is that's really got some character about it, something that will sit alongside the Thunderbird, not necessarily outshine it, but sit alongside the Thunderbird in a way that is kind of its equal, if you know what I mean, that's got some history to it, that's got some character about it, that's not just a kind of a mass-produced bike. I don't want to slag off the Phaser because it is an absolute tank of a bike, and you can't really go wrong with a bike like that because it's so reliable. But I just realised it's not for me, and to spend time and money on it, I've decided that probably isn't the best use of my time, best use of my money. So I'm gonna get something different. I've got my eyes on something. I'm not gonna disclose it just yet because I'm not 100% sure. But if I go ahead with it, I think you might be quite surprised at what I've chosen. So I'm quite surprised in a way. I thought it would never be that kind of bike that I would ever touch. But I didn't realize this type of bike had a slightly different origin than how it ended up, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, I'm not going to say too much more because you might guess it. You might have guessed it by now. I wanted to get out of the house, have a little ride on the Thunderbird, and just kind of connect with everybody post New Year. I know you're all probably struggling with the stupid amount of food that you've eaten, and I would highly recommend curbing that in the new year because it's not a sustainable way of eating. But my gosh, the cheese and biscuits I've eaten, I reckon I've eaten my own body weight in cheese, and that is all good. It's been very good. And there's no flapjack here today, for a good reason. Right, that would do.
Well, that was a lovely cup of coffee. And this is just a lovely bike, isn't it? Oh, I love the Thunderbird so bad. Listen to that. That triple just purring away. She loves it. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, just a bit ago, my challenge this year is to run a marathon. Now, it's partly because I'm turning 50 in November, and I'm like, well, I want to run a marathon before I turn 50. So this is the year, isn't it? I haven't really got much choice. I've got to do it now. So probably going to do it with a mate of mine. We're going to do the half marathon together anyway. We're doing the London, what is it? The London Landmarks half marathon. That's what it's called. So we're going to do that first. See how my body holds up with all the training and that. We'll take it from there. And then that's it. We're off on the London Marathon then. No, not the London Marathon. The Lisbon Marathon. And that'll be in October. So I know that the training for the half marathon is different, very different than the training for the marathon. Certainly isn't as straightforward. You know, a half marathon you can kind of push yourself through if you're lucky. But a marathon, you can't wing that one at all. But I'm going to train well for both of them anyway, make them happen. And I guess I just think it's good to challenge yourself, isn't it? It's good to challenge yourself. It's good to put yourself out there. It's good to do stuff that you are uncomfortable doing. And actually, some kinds of suffering are really good for us. And so, 2025, what's your challenge? What's your challenge? What's going to make you hurt a bit? What do you need to do in order to convince yourself that you've got more in you than you thought? That's a good question. What do you need to do in order to convince yourself that you've got more in you than you thought? And I always ask myself the question, am I just relaxing too much? Am I just chilling too much? Now, there's nothing wrong with chilling, nothing wrong with relaxing. Don't get me wrong. But there's something really healthy about challenging yourself. And am I avoiding challenge because I just want comfort too much? And if I just want comfort all the time, what's the reason for that? You know, there are definitely times when you just need to do absolutely sod all, because you need to rest and relax and recuperate and refresh and all the other R's that there are. Oh yeah, talking of R's, the Bristol accent. Now, you may think that I've got a strong Bristol accent. I don't know. I can't really hear myself that well. I've got friends that have got Bristol accents, and someone wrote in the comments the other day, it would be good to hear like a proper Bristol accent. So I'm actually going to find somebody soon, and I'm going to give you a proper lesson in the Bristol accent, so that you can use it at home if you want, with your friends and family. I guess it's a bit of a weird thing to do, but you know, just in case. That, by the way, was White Ladies Road, and it's kind of in the Clifton area of Bristol, which is kind of, if we go up there, we're not going to, but that's up there. This part of Bristol here, this is the top of Park Street, so this is the triangle, called the triangle because it's a triangle. You got it. And this is just a nice part of town, you know. This is a nice part of town. All this old part of Bristol, it's just steeped in history. So here we got the Wills Memorial Building there. That's part of the university. And what a beautiful building that is. Look at that. I'm trying to point my chin over there so you can see it properly. Oh, that's convenient. Look at that building. Absolutely stunning. This is a lovely part of Bristol. Absolutely lovely part of Bristol. Park Street, which is down there. I probably should have ridden down that way actually, but no, I haven't actually got time. I need to get back. We'll do the Bristol tour another time. We'll do the proper Bristol tour. But that's Park Street. That's full of great restaurants and shops and cafes and all that kind of stuff. And that leads down into kind of the Harbourside area, which when I was a kid, that was just kind of, because I think they stopped using the Harbourside for like trade and commerce and bringing in goods and stuff. It was like in the mid-70s, I think, and ended up being just a bit of a dive, really. And but as many of these places, they get regeneration, you know, regeneration happens and they get turned into these really swanky things with lovely flats and all that kind of thing. And that looks like Hogwarts up there. It's not. It's the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, which is actually a school. That is just not a name of a school, is it? The Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Strange. But anyway, it is a school. I think it might be private. I'm not sure. I think it is. I've lost my train of thought. There, that's right. Harbourside. So the Harbourside has been kind of built up again, but now there's some, you know, really nice flats down there. It's really expensive to live. Got the lovely area like around the M Shed with all the restaurants, pop-up restaurants, the cargo. I think they call it the cargo shed, which is out the back of the M Shed, which has got all these containers that have been turned into restaurants and different bits and bobs. Absolutely awesome place. I've got a mate who owns a restaurant down there actually. yeah, you can see it in front of me here. These buildings here, that used to be, that building with the round window at the front there, that used to be one of the old kind of cargo sheds, and that's been turned into some lovely flats. So it's a nice part of Bristol. We've got the SS Great Britain, which is just over there. When we go around, I'll try and look at it so you can see it without crashing into the car in front of me when we go past. But there's just so much to see. I should be a tour guide. Maybe you should do some kind of motorcycle tours around Bristol. That's probably a bad way of seeing Bristol. Oh, I don't know. Quite nice, I suppose. Kind of be better to do it on 50cc motorbikes though, because they're so light. Speaking of 50cc motorbikes, man, I remember getting my first 50cc motorbike when I was 16. I literally thought that the world was my oyster. I could just go anywhere legally, finally. I've been doing a lot of kind of illegal riding on motorcycles when I was a kid. You know, I had an old record player, right, years ago. And my mate, who had an old kind of knackered Kawasaki motorcycle, I can't remember the name of it. I think it might have been, oh, hang on, here. Can we see the SS Great? No, I can't do that safely. Sorry. Next time. Was it a KY175? I can't remember. Now I've seen them. I've seen them for sale, and they're like thousands of pounds if they are in decent nick. I had one of those. I had an old record player. My mate had this motorbike. He didn't want it. We swapped. So I swapped my old knackered record player for this Kawasaki 175. And it was like an enduro bike type thing. It was like a cross between a scrambler and like a tourer type thing. I don't know what it was. Anyway, I'll try and find a picture of it. And I'll stick it up on this little video so you can have a look. And anyway, I swapped it with him, and my mum and dad didn't know I had a motorcycle, and I knew that they would disapprove of me having a motorcycle, so I kept it on my mate's farm, and that's where it lived, this motorcycle, all on its own. And I would go out there and I would just ride it through the fields and do stupid things with it, and you know, it was all a good laugh. And but my mum and dad never knew that I had this motorbike, and I knew that they would absolutely hate it if they knew I had a motorcycle, so I just kept it to myself and kept it all silent. But my mate's dad, he did enjoy a little bit of he enjoyed a little bit of card playing every once in a while. Absolutely cracking guy. Turned up one day to get my motorcycle out of the barn and have it a ride around in the fields with it, and it wasn't there. And I said to my mate, do you know where my motorbike is? And he said, oh yeah. He said, my dad was playing cards and he put it down as a bet and he lost. And so that was the end of my motorcycle. It was gone. So, which is quite funny because I couldn't really go and complain to my mum and dad about it because they didn't know that I had one anyway. And it only cost me an old knackered record player anyway, so it wasn't the end of the world. But yeah, just a funny story. I wish I still had that bike because it was an awesome bike actually. And I think, from what I can remember, it's actually worth a bit of money now. So over there you might be able to see an aeroplane in the distance just coming into land. That's Bristol Airport just over there, just over that hill there. And pretty close to my house really, about 15 minutes in the car, if that, which makes it very convenient when we're going to go on holiday. And the Thunder is just riding like an absolute dream. You know, I was thinking earlier on, because I was only just going up the road, that I would just wear my jeans, but then, you know, it's a dangerous thing, isn't it, when you think, oh, I'm just going to do a little ride up the road, I won't put all of my protective gear on. And that's, you know, that's when things can happen, you know, your little ride up the road and you haven't got all your gear on, and you know, this little piece of tarmac here, it's going to hurt just as much as any other piece of tarmac anywhere in the world. So whenever you go out, you should just probably put your protective gear on, just in case. Because if you did take a little slide on the road, it's nice to know that it's your leather trousers that are going to get wrecked and not your flipping skin. So, oh my, it's getting cold now. My fingers are freezing. I could have worn my heated gloves, but they're just so restrictive. The movement is terrible in them. Right, it's over and out from me, I think. I'll see you next time on the next episode of Matt Rises Thunderbird, right? Just talking loads of shit. No, it's not.